This is the sound of refusing to give in. It's leaving nothing to chance. Searching relentlessly for the right, the only treatment option that will keep a heart beating. Fortunately, the Christ Hospital Health Network has groundbreaking treatment options unavailable anywhere else in the country, developed with help from our own physicians. That's what makes us Greater Cincinnati's Heart Hospital and one of the top heart hospitals in the world. The Christ Hospital Health Network, everything it takes.
The Pound This Podcast is brought to you by the Christ Hospital Health Network. This is the Pound This Podcast, episode 803, Therapeutic Forest Bathing with Eli Cochran.
I want to lose weight, but I don't know how to get started.
What should I meal prep every week?
How do I get those sweet booty gains?
Inspiration for your healthy lifestyle. The Pound This Podcast with Amanda Valentine.
Hello, friends. Welcome to the Pound This Podcast. Before I get into this fascinating conversation about forest bathing and forest therapy with Eli, I want to tell you about some other amazing people in my life, and that is Sarah and Team Fit With Me. If you are looking for a great health coach anywhere, Sarah is a virtual coach, and she can help you accomplish your goals. She's great with accountability and specifically fat loss. I mean, Sarah just started her own podcast with her other team of other coaches because, yeah, Sarah has a whole team of people to help you with mental health, help you with physical wellness, help you with weight loss if that's your goal, gaining strength. If you have gut issues, hormonal issues, Sarah will run labs and help you with all of that. So if you've tried everything and you're frustrated and you just can't reach your goals and you're like, I need somebody to help me, Sarah can absolutely do that, especially if, you want to learn how to count macros and understand your food and what you're eating and your nutrition. Go to teamfitwithme.com/pound this to save 10% off month one of all packages and plans. And if you're looking for some help with nutrition, check out Clean Eats. They are absolutely amazing. Here in Cincinnati, I go to the Newport location in Kentucky. There's a Westchester location too if you're further north in Cincinnati. If you're not in Cincinnati, check to see if there's a Clean Eats location near you. But meal prep options, so healthy food with your macros and calories listed right on there, made with fresh ingredients with everything listed right there. You can get all of their frozen options, get the fresh meals. That's what I do. I personally do 21 meals a week because it has made my life so much freaking easier. So I don't have to cook and meal prep every Sunday anymore. It's been fabulous. Lots and lots of variety of food. And also there's a cafe. So if you just wanted to eat there for lunch or dinner, you could do that too. So check out Clean Eats if you're in Cincinnati and Newport and Westchester. Right now, let's check out Eli and learn all about forest bathing. Thank you so much for listening to the Pound This Podcast. I am Amanda Valentine. I am so excited about covering the topic of forest bathing. As a person who just loves nature for many reasons and loves to spend time in nature, I want to know all about this. And luckily, by working at the Y, I ran into somebody who is a certified forest therapy guide, and that is Eli Cochran. Hi, Eli.
Hey, thanks for having me, Amanda.
Oh, I'm so excited you want to have this conversation because, I've kind of heard of forest bathing, but I really didn't know what that means. I know I like spending time in nature and hiking, and then, so I work for the YMCA in Cincinnati, and so do you, and I know that there's this summer camp and this Camp Ernst, and I knew of that because of working at the Y, and I'm like, I want to go check that out. I want to see what's a ropes course and see what's up because I like being outside, so I went and asked you to get a tour, and then we met, and then I'm like, you told me that you just got certified in forest bathing. I'm like, we have to talk about this.
That's right. Yeah. It's so funny because I think just like what you said, you love being in the forest. Me too. And it's when I read this book called The Nature Fix by Florence Williams. And when I read that, it was like discovering this thing that we all, I think that you and I both at least knew in our heart, which is the forest is healing. And there's something special about being out there. And what I learned from that is like, it's not just that we sensed something. It was like, oh, that's real. Like that's science. That scientifically, the forest heals you. And that's really cool.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, and to go into what you do for your day job, working for the Y, where you work within nature, I'm sure you see that a lot. So tell me kind of about your background of your work and what you do with camp and all of that and how that ties into nature.
Yeah. So my real job is that I work at a summer camp, and I have been there working full time year round for 20 years. And so we have our 365 acres of forests and woodlands and fields and creeks and ponds and a lake, and then also cabins and a couple dining halls. We have about 600 kids a week in the summer who come and spend their time in nature and get to hang out with cool camp counselors and try new things and make friends. And, on the surface, you think like you did, like, oh, it's the ropes course and it's horseback riding. And secretly, what happens, or maybe not so secretly, is that by building connections and trying new things, we're all, growing socially, and we're growing in our, spirit, mind, and body, the whole YMCA triangle. And we're learning more about ourselves. We're learning about each other. We're learning how to make friends. We're building confidence. So all of that stuff happens at summer camp, which, you might think like you're just singing songs and making s'mores, but it's just so much more than that.
So I'm just kind of curious, with seeing that many kids year after year, do most of those kids have any sort of relationship with the outdoors, with outside of coming to the camp, or do they come there and kind of just get their mind blown because they don't really spend much time outside?
Yeah, I would say today, here we are in the 2020s, and the most kids, their exposure to the outside, if they have any, is in organized sports, like maybe they play soccer. So they might be outside for an hour for soccer practice, but it's on a curated field, and there's not a lot of trees around, and there's nothing wrong with that, but it's not the same thing as the less structured, more free form, supervised play and exploration of the forest that happens at summer camp. So yeah, it's definitely, most kids are coming with little to no experience of connecting with nature.
Yeah. So how did you initially connect with nature? Was it in a camp experience yourself?
Well, actually, for me, I mean, I'm from the generation that I was born in the 70s. So I grew up going outside and playing, and we didn't have a lot of rules or supervision about what we were doing. And I was blessed to grow up I grew up in Cincinnati in the city limits, but we had an extra lot next to our house, and it was all woods. And I mean, I would spend so much time out there looking for fossils in the creek and collecting wildflowers, and sometimes digging holes to try to see if I could build a trap for anybody who might be coming in the woods. So that was how I spent my time. As a young child, I climbed trees and slid down ropes and burnt my hands, got rope burn. But I kept going back outside. And so, yeah, I always loved the outdoors before even I discovered summer camp.
So what kind of led you to this path of nature as therapy and forest bathing?
Honestly, this is maybe embarrassing to admit, but you know how you get how your internet knows you?
Yeah.
Right? Like the algorithms sent me this advertisement for the forest therapy school a few years ago. And I was like, forest therapy? I know about that because I had read this book, The Nature Fix. I had heard the author of The Nature Fix, Florence Williams, speak at a conference maybe 5 or 6 years ago. And I read her book, loved it, felt really connected to it, started learning about it a little bit, but I'd never thought of doing it myself. And so when the internet sent me the advertisement, I was like, wait, my kids are all older. I have some little extra pockets of time in that I could study something and get certified in something. I haven't gone to school in a long time, but I could try this. And I'm so glad that I did. It was kind of a risk for me personally, because it was like a vulnerable thing to do a school kind of certification program.
Was this all online?
It was online on Zoom. There were maybe a dozen people in my class from all over the country, and they were all different kind of backgrounds. One was a physician, one was a preschool teacher, one was a retired attorney. So they came from all different places. One was a Methodist minister, and they had all different reasons for wanting to get certified in forest bathing. And but we came together with a common, I'm going to say, like, interest in the scientific benefits of nature and curiosity for learning more and discovering more and finding out what's out there.
That's awesome. So first question is, so what is forest bathing? Like, what is the definition of that?
Yeah. So forest, we'll like zoom out a little bit. There's forest therapy is like an umbrella kind of term. And and so we kind of use it interchangeably, forest therapy, forest bathing. But really forest bathing is one form of forest therapy, and which is one form of ecotherapy, which is basically like wilderness therapy, or, the recognition of the outdoors as being a therapeutic instrument. And so forest bathing, the term, I think it originated from this Japanese practice called Shinrin-yoku, which is literally bathing in the forest, like going on walks in the forest and receiving the health benefits which come from being among the trees. The trees give off this chemical called phytoncides, like PHO, pH, starts with a PH, phytoncides. And it's like what trees use to fight insects and disease. And when humans receive them, it also helps to fight disease inside. So it like prompts your body to make more disease fighting cells, simply put. And so, the form of forest therapy that I was certified in is a mindfulness practice. And so that's what I'm most familiar with. So it's the practice of going into the forest, sometimes called dropping in, which is a really sweet phrase, I think, dropping into the forest and slowing down. So it's not just like popping in my earbuds, going for a run in the woods. Like, my husband is a long distance runner. He loves to run in the woods. He receives benefits from running in the woods for sure, because he's outdoors, but he's also listening to podcasts the whole time. And it's not the same thing as mindfully slowing down and taking in all that's around you. So when you go on a forest bath walk, you might be invited by the guide to notice certain sounds or notice smells or patterns or textures, or to just do a practice called sit spot, which is like you sit down and you just see what happens for 20 minutes. And that sounds kind of crazy in our busy world, right? Like, I can see behind your eyes, you're thinking of how many emails you could check in 20 minutes, right? But like the thing is, like, the brain just needs time to slow down. And if you're just sitting still, it takes maybe 5 or 10 minutes for nature to come back around you, for the birds to not be as scared, and like the creatures and the critters around to sort of be like, okay, this is not a thing that's going to disturb me. This thing is just this person sitting there. And so you can look around and just notice and see what you find out. And when you go in with a curiosity, you don't have an expectation for what you're going to come out with. And it's always a surprise.
Yeah. I mean, that's amazing. I mean, I will say that I do that. I didn't realize that's what I was doing exactly. So for me, my favorite hiking spot in Cincinnati is Mount Airy Forest.
Yeah.
And there's like even just like one section of the trail where there's a little flat rock. And every time I get to it, I will just stop and I will just sit there. And I will sit there for, 20 minutes or more. And just like, just kind of just take it all in. And then you just kind of watch like how the trees sway and watch the clouds and watch how like everything, then you'll notice stuff like start jumping around, and it's awesome. So it's like not only will I go for like a hike where I'm there for exercise, but it's just kind of sitting down and just chilling. But you're right. Like at first, I think it's just like meditation, where at first your brain's going like spinning 100 miles an hour. Like check your phone. Why don't you take a picture of this moment? Post it. You know what I mean? And it will, but like in that brain, I will be like, well, I can take a picture and post about this, but I'll do that afterwards. Like give myself like my time and let me like have my space. And then I can do that if I feel like I want to do that. But like, I don't know. I find that so calming, but I did the same thing too. I lived in Oregon before I moved to Cincinnati, where I did a ton of hiking, and I would do a lot of it with headphones in. So I would do that, listen to podcasts and walk around. But it is different when you just kind of like are quiet and just, which you should have, by the way, it's safer.
That's true.
Like
That's true.
You're kind of asking for trouble to have like headphones in. Of just like, stranger danger, I think would probably be the number one danger, even more so than animals. So
Yes.
I probably wouldn't recommend the headphones, but yeah, it's just crazy how much, like, again, it's not going to completely like change your whole life around, but how you just, once you get past that, I feel like that like fever pitch of the first 5 minutes of like, I got to busy myself, how you kind of ease into it, even like a yin yoga where you're holding a pose for a while, how it's hard at first and then you'll just like relax into it, which I think is just, I think eye-opening how hard it is for all of us to like be calm and sit still for a minute. Why is it so hard?
Yeah, I know. It is so hard. I pulled out this card that I wrote myself. This is like about a year ago when I went on a forest walk. Can I read this to you?
Oh yeah.
Okay. I wrote, this is last February. I said, I entered the walk feeling tense and excited to see what gift I would find. I caught myself creating something, like looking for something instead of just being. And that's the problem, is because if you know that you're going to get something, then you're like, maybe that's it. Maybe that's it. Maybe that, like maybe it's that bird that I saw. I assessed the attitudinal foundations. That's like a way of being when you're going into the forest, and let go of the physical tension I was carrying in my shoulders. And it felt like melting. All of a sudden, I could feel my feet on the earth, and I remembered gratitude for how the earth held me. Another deep breath, and I felt the biting cold breeze on my right cheek and all the way down my leg. I looked up to the sun, and I felt its warmth on my left side. And that was the gift. Not something to look at, but something to feel. Two feelings at once, warm and cold.
Ooh, I love that.
Yeah. And I love that I like found this card tucked into a book. And because I was reminded of how I get so excited and I talk real fast, or I'm thinking real fast, and I'm looking for the thing that is going to be cool that I'm going to tell somebody about later. Or and then in this case, it wasn't anything to look at. It was just the feeling.
Yeah, which is awesome. And that's what you see, and you can't take a picture of that and put that on social media. It's just for you.
Yes.
So like, have you noticed after kind of studying this practice, and I mean, you said you've been at Camp Ernst for 20 years and you obviously know those grounds very well. Has this given you any sort of new perspective on the same sort of, nature spot that you've been in so long?
Yeah, this is funny. I did not think that I would have that kind of response to doing like intentional forest bathing walks on this property, because I know it, like you said. And I have found these places that I didn't know were there, even though I've been here for 20 years. And even in there's this one part of Salamander Creek where it comes down, and one time I decided my sit spot was going to be right there in the creek. And it was unlike anything I've ever experienced, with the sound of the creek. And I looked up, and it was like I could see the water coming from that way. And then down the other side was where the water was going, the way the rock formations. I mean, I can't even describe it to you, but I have been to that place so many times before, but it wasn't until I took a breath and stopped and sat there for a little bit that I recognized it as, as a gift.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I mean, you were mentioning some of the scientific, therapies, or I guess I can't think of the right word. Benefits of being out in nature. What are those?
Right. Like, okay, so it sounds kind of woo woo and, which nothing is wrong with that. And I think people recognize, I will say, so many people, when they come to meet with me at camp, they'll arrive at my office and they'll say something like, oh, just driving down the driveway, I just felt this immediate sense of like, oh, I can let go. And so, but they're recognizing the more like mental benefits, which are absolutely there. And also physically, there's been studies about a boosted immunity, like this increase in the NK cells and the anti-cancer proteins. And that's what is the benefit of those phytoncides from the trees. Lower cortisol levels, so lower stress, reduced inflammation. Because the serotonin increases, you have an improved mood, improved mental health, reduced anxiety, lowered blood pressure and heart rate, improved sleep. Who doesn't want improved sleep?
Right.
The regulated blood sugar. These are all things that that have been studied. Improved concentration and short-term memory. And then just the increased feeling of social connection and empathy when you spend time outside by yourself. Like, that's kind of counterintuitive, but It works that way.
Well, and isn't just wild too. It's like whenever you have you think of these sorts of conversations, it involves some sort of talk therapy, or some hardcore vigorous exercise of no, practice is just literally getting in some trees where it doesn't even have to be anything insane. You don't have to go to the Rockies to just sit down and have a moment and just take in nature of how you can get so many benefits from literally just sitting and chilling out next to a tree.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. And maybe we should frame it like that, make that argument to ourselves, right? We're actually doing a lot by doing nothing.
Right? Exactly.
Maybe we would carve more time out for it if we thought about it that way.
Well, it's funny you bring up the woo-woo stuff, because I'm hey, I'm all about the woo-woo stuff, and I won't apologize for it. And this is going to make me sound very woo-woo, and I don't care. This has been a newer practice for me, I'd say, in the past couple of years, is again, cliche term, tree hugging. But I'm I like hugging trees. It just makes me feel better. And what's weird is I naturally gravitate more towards just evergreen trees. For some reason that speaks to me. I love big, beautiful evergreen trees. So living in Oregon was the jam, because I lived in the mountains and it was awesome. But that's kind of just what I naturally kind of gravitate towards. And even if I just drive past a pretty evergreen tree, it just automatically just kind of calms me. Look how pretty that is. Yeah. Which sounds super woo-woo-y, but it's it's true. It's those simple life pleasures. So definitely going on a walk or just seeing a tree that I'm man, I really like this tree, and just giving it a hug, which again, super woo-woo-y, but it's just this very calming, nice effect to it that I'm it makes me happy. It's this moment of calm and peace. And if that gives me that, I don't care if somebody drives by and they're look at this weirdo chick.
No, maybe you're going to inspire someone, and that's a better way of looking at it. But hey, there's actually, I don't know all of the what types of trees have what types of phytoncides, but you should look it up, because different kinds of trees have different kinds of health benefits with their phytoncides, and evergreens are one that is listed as the evergreen specifically does blah, blah, blah.
Oh, okay.
So, maybe there's a reason that is your favorite tree. I don't know.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just interesting of how that hasn't always been a thing for me, but I think it's just one of those things of once you kind of slow down and calm down, then you can be oh, I actually kind of gravitate towards certain things. And then I think even like with that, like I know the tree hugging thing is like an eye roll inducing probably for a lot of people, but I think that you think of those sorts of things and be like, and it deters you from doing something that actually gives you some joy because you're so afraid of like what other people are going to think. Like if you're like, hey, I go out and forest bathe, I'm sure there's plenty of people who have coworkers that would like totally give them crap for that or shame them, like, what does that mean? You know what I mean? Because that's just human nature. But like, don't let that stop you from doing something that actually could give you like a lot of mental and physical health benefits if that feels like it's your jam. And for me, I feel like that is my jam. And so I know it's done a ton for me. And again, I love hiking and walking through the woods. So I love the physical aspect of that, but just being out there in general, it's different for me walking on a dirt trail in the woods than it is walking on a sidewalk. So it's just, I don't know, it just puts you in a whole other brain space. And even for me working at Pal Crosley YMCA, we have the lodge in the back, which I love, which is a big, beautiful A-frame. And we have just a small little like nature trail around it, which isn't even really in the woods. It just kind of goes around outside. But I know for me, like especially if I catch there's some sunshine this time of year and I go out there and just do a couple laps, like I immediately feel different. My head feels clearer. I feel like ideas come to me easier. I feel lower stress just by going outside for maybe 7 minutes of how much that just recharges me. And I don't know. I just think, again, like everything that you're saying just speaks to me so much of like how much the health benefits that has. And I think that, you know, I wish more people would understand that of, you know, maybe that doesn't work for everybody, but it is absolutely a free option for everyone if you wanted to take advantage of that.
Yeah. And in some other countries, doctors are starting to prescribe time in nature.
Oh, that's cool.
For health benefits. And I look forward to the day that it happens here. I think there's parts of the United States where some companies are recognizing the benefits. And so, promoting it with their, health insurance or whatnot.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't even know if you can answer this question, but being at like a camp, like, is that anything that has ever been an option there, is to have those kind of things for whenever you don't have kids there for summer camp, of to have that option for adults to kind of go out there and have this space?
Yeah, we haven't figured that out yet. And, liability wise and staffing wise and whatnot. But I have led a couple of forest bathing walks integrated into our programming, like the Women's Wellness Weekend program. And also for family camp one time I did it. And that's been really neat to just introduce people to a different way of being outside. But I would love to get to a space where it's also just part of, our local YMCA programming of, come on Thursday evenings down
that'd
to
be cool.
camp or something.
So when you host, or I guess lead a guided tour, like what does that look like?
Yeah, there's a specific model that I was taught through the Forest Therapy School. And so we follow that, and it goes through kind of a grounding exercise, like a little mindfulness at the beginning. And then there's a series of what we call invitations. And that's where I might invite the group to, like I said before, go out and spend a few minutes, discovering the smallest things that you can see. And so an invitation is something that the guide uses to spark something in the participants. So if I said, go find the smallest thing you can see, it sounds more like a directive. So instead I say, like, I invite you to go discover what small things are out there. And then you might go, and it gives you a little bit of direction, but also you don't know exactly what, it's not like a scavenger hunt. You are just going to go, and you're going to look, and you're going to find like an ant, and then you're going to find like a speck on the ant, and then you're going to find the little ant that's like crawling, I don't know. And the way that kind of mindfulness connects you to something outside of you, but also to something inside of you is like part of the magic of it. And so it's through those invitations that you go out and then you come back to the group. And some people might say, like, I saw this like piece of moss that was that I really loved, or I saw this fossil, or whatever. Or if the invitation was about noticing movement, then maybe you noticed the way the trees blew in the breeze, or the way the water went down in the creek. And so then when the group gathers back together, you get that community feeling of, you get to hear about what other people discovered. And that is really special, because sometimes they tie it to a story, or sometimes it's just like, they're discovering something that you can't even believe that you've been in that same place and didn't notice. And then, so you do several of those invitations, and then it ends with this very sweet tea ceremony, which is like just everybody gets a little tea, that herbal tea, because it comes from the earth. And then we offer some to the earth as a thank you. And everyone gets to do a little reflection, debriefing, and kind of celebration of the time. So that's kind of the basic structure of it.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
how long does that usually take?
It's like 2 hours.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a little bit, I think, like, it pushes you to the edge of your comfortability. Like, you're kind of like, 2 hours in the woods, but like, I think that's what is cool about it. 'Cause you can see like, I did actually just spend 2 hours in the woods, and it was a beautiful gift.
Yeah. And I feel like you can scroll for 2 hours on TikTok pretty easily if you want to, you know what I mean? Where you just like look up and where the time go.
Yeah.
Where it's like, you could easily spend that time out here, and what else can you notice? But I love the idea of like those little directives.
Yeah.
Because
invitations.
Invitations.
Yes.
Of like, I don't think that, I think I'm going to do that next time that I'm able to get out in the woods, of like, I think just even the cueing of like movement, of just focusing on all the ways you see movement is just like a totally different way to see it, instead of like, you're just kind of seeing it all together and it all just kind of blends, but to kind of hone down on one little element and see how that like plays with everything else is really neat.
Right. And one time, like when the, like with the invitation of movement, I noticed these trees that had the trunks all twisted. And at first, I'm like, I want things to like fit into a rule. And I'm like, well, they're not moving. I was like, wait, that is interesting movement. 'Cause it's like twisted trunks, that's a different kind, it's an unexpected thing. And so, you don't really know what you're going to find.
Yeah. That's super cool. And yeah, I love the element of everyone discussing that afterwards, of like how you all saw these completely different things. It's almost kind of like, whenever you have, not really specifically a magic eye, because I guess you kind of all see the same thing in that, but like, if you think of like an ink blot, or like looking at the clouds, of clouds. Everyone's going to see something completely different, even though you're looking at a very similar thing. And I think that's super interesting, because our brains and our perceptions, or even just our past, will change how we see things. And how do you view the forest differently? And I can imagine it would be really cool for you to guide some of these people, and maybe have like open up a whole new world for them, where maybe they weren't engaged in nature before, but this encouraged them to spend more time out there.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. It's opening up a new world for people. I think it's affirming a world that people like you already are committed lovers of the natural world. And it's an entry point for people into environmentalism, honestly, because once you realize that, what the earth has given you, then maybe you could be a little more cognizant of what you're doing to care for the earth.
Right. Well, and the thing that's eye-opening for me every time I go is at Miami Whitewater Forest. Yeah, I don't know have you been there?
I have.
So if you do the big long loop, and I usually walk it, I don't ride the bike, but you go through like prairie, and you go through like wetlands. And it's basically like, this is what Ohio looked like. And to me, that's eye-opening of just like, well, it wasn't that long ago. Like, we didn't have these like perfectly manicured lawns with this kind of grass. Like, this is the grass that was everywhere. This is what everything looked like that you had to just walk through. Like, right. This was life out here. And of like, man, can you like, I don't know, that kind of takes me down a rabbit hole of being like out in that space and then imagine my life in this every day and what that looks like. And then paying attention to everything that's kind of swirling, like all the different birds that I don't see on a regular basis and everything else that's out there and being like, wow, this is what Ohio was for a really long time until like the Industrial Revolution. And to think how much that's changed and also like how removed we are from that, of how you have to drive and you have to go, pay in a park to go sit down in what was naturally how we all lived not too long ago. I don't know. That whole process just kind of like, kind of blows my mind a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what it says is, we had millions of years as humans as being connected to nature. And so maybe it's a little unnatural the way we live now, but it also is how we live. Yeah. And so maybe it explains why when we get out there, we feel good because it's like where we belong.
Yeah. So I mean, I think that's the best part of it too, is you can go out there and you can have that feeling without the feeling of like, am I going to starve to death? What do I have to kill to eat today? Right. I have air conditioning at home.
Kroger is down the street.
Yeah, exactly. So you're like the best of both worlds of like, I can go out here and enjoy this and then also be comfortable in my home, in my shelter. Right. So I think it's with our, our life now, which is how culture is too. At least, for me, I mean, you're lucky that you get to like have a job where you get to be out there every day, but it's hard because it is so therapeutic for me. And it feels like I only get these very small, like glimmer moments where I'm able to just even walk to the park that's down the street from my house. Mm-hmm. And like, even I love Mount Airy and that's like 10 minutes from my house. And I still like feel like I rarely get to go there. Or Winton Woods is right by Pal Crosley YMCA. And I've been there like twice since I've worked there. And I think it's just so hard of like, you want to have these moments where you can slow down and be in nature because it's so helpful, but life is so busy and hectic that we tend to not carve out the correct time to just even go outside and just sit outside, which I'm super guilty of and I find personally frustrating.
Yeah. Well, and it's hard this time of year too, when it gets dark so early.
Yeah.
It's hard to, carve it into like the middle of the day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we know that there are still benefits from even like sitting by your houseplants. So if you need to like, dial it back and, don't go outside when it's unsafe, but sit by your houseplants and, see what you can notice. And maybe there's something special there too.
Or just make it a priority. Sometimes like just even thinking of people making a fitness routine or your coffee routine is a priority every day. Can you find space that you can put this in? At least I try to on weekends. And like I said, like I go for walks outside a little bit while I'm at work of just, can you find any sort of that time to kind of there and reconnect if you find it personally helpful for your mental health, which I think we could all use a little happiness in our mental health.
Yes.
So if anybody's listening to this and they're like, dang, this is super cool. Like, where do you, like, what's the process of the guide school that you went to of like, how long does that take and all that other stuff?
It is, so it's theforesttherapyschool.com is their website. And I think it was 12 weeks, 8 or 12 weeks. I don't remember. But it was, they actually do in-person retreats a few times a year also, where they do certifications, or they do the remote learning ones that are self-paced. With each week you have a bunch of readings and kind of exercises to do, and then you have your gathering time on Zoom for, I think it was 90 minutes or 2 hours, where we learned the content and had some reflection, and then several walks, which it's shocking, but those can happen on Zoom too, where like everybody's you're on your phone on Zoom and like walking through the forest and then like checking back in. I was kind of skeptical, but it totally works.
Interesting. Yeah. I've never really thought about being like on a walk in the woods, being on Zoom before.
Yeah, I know.
Especially like being like that is school.
Yeah, I know. It's
How cool.
2023, baby.
Right? Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much for having this conversation with me and sharing all that. I think that is like super amazing. And I love that you did that for yourself and you took those risks for yourself to do this, because it seems like, at least to me, like really important work, not only for yourself, but for everybody around you. So thank you so much for sharing.
Yes. Well, thanks for being interested and for talking to me about it.
Awesome. Eli, thank you so much.
All right. Take care.
AmandaValentineBites.com